So today's presentation on Ayurveda for sleep. So talking about sleep is such a huge foundation in Ayurveda. Sleep falls under a specific category of the three pillars of health. It's called as Trayopastamba. So Trayopastamba really reveres major foundations of health, such as Nidra, which is sleep, Ahara, which is nutrition or inputs into the mind body, and then also Brahmacharya, which is known as also energy management. It also ties into sexual health as well, but it's energy management and also our daily routines and how we kind of take care of the mind and body, take care of the energy. Okay, and our focus today is talking on this beautiful topic of sleep care. So just a brief reminder of some of the language that we use in Ayurveda, which will, of course, will be familiar to many of you, but I'm going to go through some specific topics and just tie it into looking at some of the main energy that we like to cultivate to support healthy sleep. So firstly, Ayurveda, many of you will know the definition of this. So Ayurveda means life wisdom. And this is an old philosophy rooted in South Asia, in Indian culture, preserved so phenomenally in India and also in Sri Lanka. It's approximately 5,000-year-old tradition that is also known as a sister science to yoga philosophy as well. And within this wisdom system, there is a major philosophy that we all are coming from the elements. The elements that make up the universe also make up ourselves, this mind and body. So we look at 5 sacred elements, the elements of space, of air, fire, water, and earth. And these elements that exist within the universe also exist and make up this physical mind and body. Give way to the doshas, the 3 doshas that many of you all will already know of. We talk of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata being made up of space and air, Pitta being made up of primarily fire and also a little bit of water, and Kapha dosha primarily of earth and water. Now, we all have all of the doshas within us. We all have all of the elements within us. However, we come into this world with an original constitution. At the time of our birth, this original constitution is our prakriti, the original blueprint of us that gives insight into our tendencies, our strengths, our weaknesses as well, and might give insight into what are the things that might show up in our life in terms of imbalances. Okay, and these imbalances are known as vikruti, the imbalanced state. Okay, so as Ayurveda practitioners, we typically focus on this in terms of bringing balance, right? So the prakriti doesn't change. This is consistent throughout life. However, the vikruti will change, right? So this is like if you are having insomnia, if you're having sleep issues coming up, then this might show a disturbance in a certain dosha type, and often it could be related to Vata dosha or even Pitta dosha as well, okay? And so these are the things that we would bring a pacification through to, and this is shamana. When we're pacifying the dosha, we're soothing it, we're calming it down, or through cleansing the dosha, which is known as shodhana, which is making sure that we're actually reducing the excess of the dosha in the body. Okay, so the therapeutics of Ayurveda, many of you will know, often work with this healing principle of opposites, right? So if something is excessively cold in nature, then of course we would really want to bring warmth, to bring healing, to rebalance that dosha state. If something is very light in nature, which is overstimulating in nature, then we'd want to bring a sense of heaviness or calm, right? To bring a remedy to that overactivated state, right? So when we're thinking of sleep issues, oftentimes it's because there's a higher state of Vata, which could mean that there's lightness, there's an increase of activity or nervous system stimulation. And in order to bring a calm or grounding to that excess lightness, the earth element would be Very, very helpful, right? So this is what we'll talk about when we get into discussing Ratri Charya, which is the nightly routine that would be advised in Ayurveda. Okay, so this is just a brief foundation. So Ayurveda's view on healthy sleep. Firstly, I love to, just quote the Ashtanga Hridayam, which gives a beautiful description of sleep. Happiness and unhappiness, nourishment and degeneration, strength and debility, fertility, knowledge and ignorance, life and its absence, death, all are dependent on sleep. So sleep, again, it's part of the major foundations of vitality, of health in Ayurveda. And Ayurveda as a system that also prevents, is so focused on prevention of disease or imbalance, sleep becomes so central to this. So the view of healthy sleep in Ayurveda is fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake refreshed, right? So there shouldn't be an issue with initiating sleep or maintaining sleep, and we should wake up actually feeling well, feeling refreshed in the morning. And sleep should be based on individual needs, right? So what you require as a child is different from what you might require as a young adult or as someone that is going through postpartum period, pregnancy, or going through a disease state as well. So needs will definitely change based on the stage of life that you're in. Generally, 7 to 8 hours is considered to be nourishing, balancing, and really protective of your overall health. However, timing is very important. So getting the 7 to 8 hours, ideally, according to the Ayurveda clock, which we'll discuss, should be between the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., somewhere in that range, okay? It's suggested in Ayurveda to follow this rhythm and to wake before sunrise in particular to support this natural rhythm of the body, according to the dosha's energies throughout the day. And it's advised not to take day naps. However, Ayurveda always will say it depends, right? So day naps, of course, are generally the rule. However, for young people or older people, those going through postpartum, again, this is another need, then day naps might be something that is beneficial, right? Otherwise, it could disturb the rhythm. And in Ayurveda, it could create actually a buildup of toxin or ama, as we say, stagnation in the body. And so this is something we should avoid unless it's, it's needed for the stage of life that we're in. Okay, so this is the Ayurveda clock. And it becomes really helpful to understand, what energies might be prevalent at certain times of days. So this Ayurveda clock, according to the ancient guides, the holders of this wisdom of Ayurveda, who really came to understand which dosha, which elements were prevalent at specific times, according to the energy of the sun and according to the energy of the moon. Okay, so starting in the morning, we have more of a kapha energy, a water and earth energy between the timing of 6 to 10 a.m. This is the time that we should actually strive to wake slightly before sunrise, right? So the 6 o'clock timing for the morning does reflect a general sort of sunrise time. And of course, this shifts and change. So here in Ontario, where we're located, of course, 6:45 is the timing of sunrise now. And the timing to wake up before the kapha time can be beneficial to maintain good rhythm, good energy throughout the day. And if we miss that timing, then we might actually just fall into the energy of kapha more. We might feel a heaviness more in our bodies. And so it might be a little bit more difficult to actually get going for the day if we sleep in towards 8 or 9 a.m. Again, depending on your needs as an individual as well. Okay, so then moving on to the next energy that starts to shift when the sun is the highest, when it's peaking in the sky. This is between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and this is Pitta dosha. So the fire dosha is elevated at this time. right? And this means that the dosha of the universe is elevated. It's also increased within us as well. And this is reflected in Ayurveda as the most important time to fuel your body, as your natural Agni, your inner strength of digestion is higher. Okay, so this is the time that you should have your biggest meal of the day. Right, so maybe it's towards somewhere between 11 to 1, that might be your time frame, but really focusing on in having your biggest meal, your biggest, heaviest, the most nourishing meal of the day at this time, so your body can break down the food, absorb it, and assimilate it well. Okay, so the next timing would be the Vata time of day, which is 2 to 6 p.m. Right, so this is often the time that our energy might drop naturally. Okay, and this is the time where you might also feel a need to fuel yourself with something. It's a common time to actually have cravings as well. And this is natural, right? So this is following a natural clock. And even according to science as well, if we're looking at cortisol, the stress hormone, it naturally rises in the morning and it gently falls down towards the night. If it's impaired due to higher stress, then this becomes a problem at night, which I'll go on to discuss as well. But during the Vata time of the afternoon, yes, you can fuel yourself, have a snack, be gentle with your body, maybe do a little bit of pranayama or do some yoga nidra practice, or maybe do legs up the wall, something that's calming for you. It's nice to kind of do something that your body might be craving as well. Maybe you're walking in nature or something like this. And then you're preparing for your evening meal. So during this time frame in the evening, it is nice to have a lighter meal. So you might be eating in the kapha time, which is between 6 to 7 p.m. on that earlier side of the kapha time. And you're fueling yourself, as this is the time to rebuild from the day as well, the kapha time. And ideally, we're following this wave of kapha, this heavier energy at this time, to fall into rest. Okay, so as the sun is starting to set, we also dim the lights in our home, right? So this is advised. Dim the lights in your home. Don't keep on bright lights. Avoid blue lights from your devices as well, right? So this especially is important 1 hour before your goal to sleep. And I recommend to all of the people I work with, right, to try to start a wind down routine by 8:30 p.m., right? And start to, wind down your family even earlier. Of course, if you have children, then you know how important that is. And I'll mention here that I do have children myself. I have 3 children, so I do use these routines with us as well. And ideally, we're all, wrapping up the day and winding down, keeping dim lights and keeping things as peaceful as possible, having a warm beverage, and then getting into bed minimum by 9 p.m., of course, earlier for children. Okay, and as an adult, you want to aim to be asleep before 10 p.m. And the ideal is that you are easily falling asleep and that you're not waking in the night. Okay, but what if you are waking in the night? What if you're someone that is having trouble either falling asleep, initiating the sleep, or you're staying awake in the night? Then we might be having a negative effect on these dosha systems, and we might be having a negative effect on our physical body, our mental health as well. Okay, we'll come to discuss that more. If you are waking up between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., this is typically the pitta time. So it might show there's an overactiveness to this particular dosha. Okay, and you might be thinking about work, you might be maybe even thinking about details of home management or other things related to organizing or, just life management in general. And then for the Vata time, if you're waking up between 2 to 6 a.m., this is often a time that we are, if we're waking up in that earlier time frame between 2 to 4, difficult to fall back asleep, and there might be increased anxiety or worry or overthinking. Vata dosha would be, of course, impacted and impacting you here, right? So The ideal situation is you're sleeping through from at least 10 p.m. towards right before sunrise. And it might fall around 6 a.m. that you're waking up, but you're just trying to wake up before the kapha dosha starts to kind of take hold more in that morning time. Okay, and let's go on. We'll discuss more about the dosha types as well. But first, we'll go on to talking about what the benefits of healthy sleep are according to Ayurveda. Firstly, as mentioned, sleep, nidra, is such an important foundation for all health. Ayurveda sees that sleep is absolutely necessary to protect your ojas, to protect ojas as this specific essence of strength and of resilience in the body that can get depleted when there's higher stress or if you're overstretched in any way, or different parts of your life. Especially if there's illness or you're in a postpartum phase and such. So we need to protect ojas. And nidra is so directly correlated to this. So sleep is directly correlated to this. We need to be sleeping in a nourishing way to be able to support our ojas, our resilience, and our capacity in daily life and waking life. Ojas is also our immunity. Right? So we're protecting, we're supporting our immune strength, and we're preventing disease by protecting our ojas. We also support the rejuvenation of the tissues of our body while we sleep. Okay, so we support the repair of our body as we sleep. And rasayana refers to the protection and the support, the nourishment of the juice or the nectar of our body. Right? And it's known as we age, we tend to lose some of this juice, this nectar of our body. Of course, our body naturally follows degeneration, but Ayurveda looks at sleep as protective to this. So supports our lifespan, supports healthy aging. If we lack sleep, it can really have an impact on our quicker sort of aging. Right? So we're slowing aging through really protecting our sleep as best we can. Ayurveda also says we support our strength, our bala, right? And of course, we know we have a good night's rest and we're consistently sleeping well. We have more strength in the day, more physical strength in the day as well. And we also support our mental health, our sattva. So our clarity of mind, our peace, and our ability to discern in terms of good situations or negative situations, and be able to generally keep a clear mind, a clear mental state, a peaceful mental state. When we look at, contemporary medicine and science, it's so reflective of similar philosophies to Ayurveda as well. We know that having good quality sleep is supportive for brain health and supportive for learning, for memory, for prevention of neurodegeneration. It supports our creativity as well. We know that, according to science, that our immunity is supported as our cytokines, like these immune proteins in our body, are really multiplied when we sleep. They grow, they become cultivated to support our immunity. Again, so important as throughout our entire life, as children, as teens, as adults, throughout our entire life, to support our immunity through good quality sleep. And healthy sleep is so essential for our mood, emotional regulation, and for also just being able to integrate maybe difficult or complex situations or emotions that we might be going through, as we just get to down-regulate and completely calm our mind and body through good quality sleep. Science also says we can prevent chronic disease, and we know that through healthy sleep, we can have better blood sugar regulation. And as I mentioned, neurodegeneration as well, and just supporting the overall strength of our body, which Ayurveda 5,000-year-old medicine also reflects. Ayurveda says when we have good sleep, we prevent things that are vata derangements or imbalances, right? So things like joint health will be protected as well. We'll protect our mind, our mental health, and our brain health, right? So sleep as a beautiful and important superpower, right? To nurture as much as we can. So sleep for each dosha, I just wanted to highlight what this might look like across the dosha types, what the tendencies might be for each dosha type. So for vata dosha, there is a characteristic that vata doshas tend towards having a lighter quality sleep in general, right? So those that have a primarily vata dosha, they have a strong vata in their prakriti, in their nature. They might have light sleep in general, light to wake, very sensitive sleep, and they might become a little bit more, their sleep might become more disturbed in transitional periods, in seasonal changes, and in times of higher stress. And again, they might have a tendency for waking between 2 to 6 a.m. They might have a tendency for waking early, naturally. And they'll be light to wake, right? So when they wake up in the morning, they might naturally have some increased energy. So here's the important thing for a vata dosha is that it's extremely important to support the calming of their nervous system, their sensitive nervous system at night. So this means it's important to wind down and calm the mind and create a lot of warmth since it's a colder, sensitive dosha in that way. Warm foot massage and having a warm hot water bottle at the feet can be beautiful, so helpful. Okay, and then for pitta dosha, where there's a tendency to actually be working in the night. So they miss the kapha period to fall asleep, and then they're in this pitta period of time, right? So they're between the hours of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. They don't feel like sleeping because they're focused on a project or they're completing a task that is something that is, on their mind. They're completing a task or perfecting, their work. So they may be working or organizing or, just, leading something in the night, pursuing something. And this will be keeping them up, right? So this is for someone that has that primary pitta in their dosha. And it is so essential for pitta people to really learn how to take a pause from their work and put it down, especially in the evening, right? So letting it go in the evening and to not pick up their phone for work or pick up their devices for work and just do really calm, serene activities that include breath work and meditation, very gentle asana, right? So it could be legs up the wall or something like this. And it might be really important for a pitta person to stay cool as well. So they might experience like irregular temperatures or hot temperatures at night, and this could also disturb their sleep. So keeping a cooler space for them can be helpful. Now, for kapha dosha, the water and earth is so helpful, right? Because they naturally will have that heaviness, the heaviness of water and earth that supports their sleep quality. So they tend towards having a deep sleep. They fall asleep easily. They enjoy sleep. They naturally have a deep sleep. And the concern here is that it actually becomes more difficult to wake in the morning because that heaviness is there. So they should always aim to wake up before the kapha dosha timing, right? And the thing I've seen in practice, right? So I've been in practice for over 10 years now. The thing that I often see in practice is that for kapha dosha, there might be something congestive that can also impact their sleep later on. So for kapha doshas, even though they generally can have a good sleep, snoring can be an issue or mouth breathing can be an issue. And this can actually lead to disturbed sleep later or fatigue during the day. Okay, so those are some factors there. Just wanting to share the doshas to see if you might relate to a specific type within you as well. So let's look at the signs of poor quality sleep, the general signs here. There might be difficulty, as I mentioned, initiating sleep. You might be tossing and turning. And there might be issues with staying asleep. So you might be waking frequently in the night, either to urinate, to deal with pain, or because there's a concern that you're thinking about or overthinking about. There might be talking in the sleep. There might be grinding teeth, snoring, or mouth breathing, which I mentioned. And the other major sign, the conversations that I have with all of the patients I work with, a major thing that I ask is, how do you feel in the morning? Right? So as soon as you're waking in the morning, how do you feel? Do you feel refreshed? Or do you want to continue sleeping, right? Do you want to hit snooze? Do you want to tell your children to leave you for a little while and just go to daddy or mommy, just I need some extra sleep here. So if you're feeling like there's a lot of difficulty waking and you're very slow in the morning, that's also a sign of poor quality sleep. So here I want to mention the common labs actually I might run for people that are experiencing those symptoms. And then we'll come back to the Ratricharya, the beautiful Ayurveda guidelines for sleep routine. So these are some tests that you might want to consider for yourself if you are having troubles with sleep. So I look at thyroid, because thyroid, it's a really important organ in our body that helps to regulate specific hormones that support our metabolic health. And if they're under functioning or over functioning, there could be a concern with temperature regulation as well. And that might be something that's very noticeable at night that is also affecting quality of sleep. The next one that I commonly will run alongside, other blood work is ferritin, which is your iron storage. And when iron is low, when there's a low hemoglobin or a low iron storage in the body, there could be, many things happening. There could be low energy in the day, yes, but also at night, there could be physical symptoms such as restless leg that is just disrupting the quality of sleep as well. There could be some muscle cramping, and that is also disturbing and creating more wakings. Hormones are also important to consider. Of course, when we are going through transitions such as perimenopause, there can be a fluctuation of progesterone. And this natural decrease of progesterone can really impact us during our perimenopause years, where progesterone is it's a soothing hormone. So it can, when we're noticing those subtle shifts where progesterone is starting to decrease, then sleep quality will become affected here too. Okay, so we might do other workups for various hormones as well, but progesterone is an important one to consider. And then cortisol. So as I mentioned, cortisol naturally follows a curve for our physical bodies where it should rise and it should slowly go down towards the end of the day. And if cortisol remains high as our stress hormone, if we're feeling a lot of stress, and this stress hormone is elevated at night, it actually blocks our melatonin production, right? So if it's blocking our melatonin production, and melatonin is needed for good quality sleep, as melatonin actually starts to peak towards this evening time of kapha, if cortisol hormone is blocking it, right, then we won't be able to initiate sleep or maintain good sleep. So decreasing our cortisol, managing our stress, and providing ourselves with that self-care that's required, right, for good quality sleep is really important. Looking at blood sugar or HbA1c. So blood sugar and diabetes prevention, insulin resistance, is also an important thing to consider if there's frequent wakings. So sometimes what happens with blood sugar, so the HbA1c, just to let you know, is a 3-month average of your blood sugar. It's usually tested in the morning on fasting. And when we're looking at this, we are considering that, that there could be a drop in blood sugar at night, right? And this might be reflective of insulin resistance or pre-diabetes, or if you already have one of those conditions, it could be impacting your quality of sleep, and there could be something needed at night. So perhaps you might require actually something small and nourishing before you go to sleep to support sleeping well through the night. Okay. And then as I mentioned that sometimes there might be snoring or there might be mouth breathing, and there's such an increase of fatigue on waking. And this is when I would actually really encourage someone to seek out a sleep test. And so this would be a referral through a family doctor, and something that would be essential to look into if there is those symptoms, especially of the fatigue on waking. Okay, that just doesn't seem to go. Right, a sleep test can help identify if there's sleep apnea. Right? And that's like a decrease of oxygen in the body as well through the night because of impaired breathing. Okay, so those are some of the tests that I would requisition and run for the patients I work with. So general sleep rituals overall, both looking at science and looking at how this might tie into Ayurveda, we must consider that sun exposure in the morning is really essential for helping to regulate our circadian rhythm. So if we're not exposing, especially our eyes and our skin, to sun, then we're not supporting that cortisol rise, right? So the cortisol will rise when you naturally expose yourself to sun. So that can help to boost the energy and support that natural fall towards the end of the day. Exercise during the day rather than the evening. Of course, in Ayurveda, this is recommended. Morning exercise is recommended. If you're exercising in the evening, it might be impacting your sleep because the cortisol tends to become elevated with that exercise. It's advised to finish consuming food around 6:30 p.m. Ideally, you want to give a 3-hour window. However, I did mention, of course, sometimes a warm drink or something nourishing, a small snack, might be needed to have a good sleep. You would begin your wind down phase with the anticipation and hope that you'll be in bed around 9:30, so you're asleep before 10 p.m. So begin this wind down phase by 8 p.m., right? And we'll talk about what to include in that phase shortly, right? So you're in bed by 9 to 9:30, asleep by 10. But here's where I want to talk about, well, what happens if this is not feasible, right? So what if you're a new parent? What if you're a shift worker, right? So there's certain things. What if you consider yourself a night owl, right? So a couple of questions I just wanted to address, and then I'll give some feedback on these just to give some insight into how I might counsel people on this as well. Is that if it's not feasible for your current lifestyle and your current commitments, right? So these are certain things we'd have to consider. Is that Ayurveda would still recommend doing your best to sleep to protect the quality of the hours you're able to sleep. So let's say you do shift work. Of course, when you're able to sleep, darken every room, the room that you're sleeping in, and really tell your body to produce that melatonin needed and support your body to calm your nervous system as much as you can. So of course that would be important. Now, if you're a new parent and, having gone through a postpartum period 3 times, and, I still currently sleep with a baby that's 18 months old as well. I really, I encourage you to find ways to sleep that support you to maintain good quality sleep. And for me, it looks like actually sleeping with my baby. Some of the parents I work with, of course, it might mean that you're sleeping separate from your baby. You might not be able to sleep for that full 7 to 8 hours, and you might have some interruptions. But the important thing is that you're following the guidelines for routines. The rituals at night can really help with the quality of sleep you are getting. So even if you're only able to get 2 to 3 hour windows in between feeding a new baby, still do your best to protect the quality as much as you can, right? So you might be drinking something warm, you might be massaging your feet, keeping something warm at your feet, like a hot water bottle. And on top of that, if sleep is disrupted in the night, this is where Ayurveda would say, yes, then you would require a nap or something in the day to help, right? And this is not considered bad. It's something that it would be individualized and supportive for your specific needs, right? And the other piece is looking at practices such as yoga nidra, so deep relaxation. That can be really key if you're going through problems with your nighttime sleep. So doing a yoga nidra practice can be very repairing for your system and truly healing. It's not considered sleep, it's considered deep relaxation, right? Deep soothing to the nervous system. So something to consider as well. If you're not able to get the nighttime sleep, do always practice a yoga nidra during the day as well. And what if you're a night owl? Right? So if you consider yourself a night owl, this is a situation that we would have to, look at and see if we can remedy, right? So it, in order to, like what Ayurveda guides us on, the beauty of Ayurveda says we should always come back to nature and natural rhythms, right? So if we follow natural rhythms, it does support our health long term, right? And this is the goal. The goal in Ayurveda is to be living in good relationship and right relationship to the world around us, to ourselves, and of course to one another, the people that we're connected to. And when we support this rhythm of nighttime sleep, it does give us greater capacity, right? And it supports our overall health. So what I encourage is to slowly inch, right? Slowly inch your timing for sleep. If you go to sleep at 1 a.m., start to inch it half an hour each week, 1 hour each week, and start to get yourself into the rhythm of sleeping earlier. Notice the benefits, right? So, I give guidelines to people, yes, but I also encourage you to really sense and notice the embodied benefits that can come from following, guidelines and rituals as well. And that's, beautiful motivation to continue, right? So we need to also consider what to avoid, right? What to limit to truly improve our sleep. So we want to, as mentioned, avoid bright lights and blue lights. So use an app, right, on your phone or devices if you are using your devices between 9 to 10 p.m. Blue light blocking glasses is something to consider too. Avoid and limit work. Of course, this is an obvious one. Things that will be elevating to your stress or activating to your nervous system, which will disrupt doshas in your body. Avoiding overly activating situations. So stress-inducing things like news and TVs and movies, books that are activating. We want to really choose things that are peaceful and serene. Avoiding loud music or heavy, challenging conversations that involve conflict. Avoid intense exercise, as I mentioned, avoid consumption of excess fluids, and do avoid alcohol as well. Alcohol can really limit your REM sleep. And this means you're not getting that deep repairing and healing sleep when consuming alcohol. And of course, avoiding late night eating, right? So you wouldn't have your dinner at 10 p.m. and then go straight to sleep. Of course, that would definitely be something that is, difficult for your body to process. Your body should be just working on clearing, detoxing, repairing the tissues of the body, supporting the immune factors of the body, and not focused on digesting, right? So this would, of course, have an impact on how your quality of sleep. So let's look at beautiful Ratri Charya. Okay, so Ayurveda outlines Ratri Charya. Ratri is night, and Charya means ritual or conduct. And this would be, advised through, this is from Ashtanga Hridayam, so like the older scriptures in Ayurveda, to utilize some of these guidelines in your nighttime routine. Some of these can be for the whole family, right? And some of these can be for your personal use. So whatever works for you. If it's possible to choose 1 to 2 things and make it part of your daily rhythm, again, see how this feels for you. Oiling your feet before bed is such a profound and simple activity to utilize. It can be really healing. So what I recommend is actually keeping a small oil heater by your bed. Warm oil is it's so divine to apply. You can use ghee, which carries such a heavy and earth-like quality to it. It's so calming and grounding. It is considered to be a traditional remedy to support and induce sound sleep. You could use sesame seed, which is also considered tridoshic, cold pressed sesame seed oil. You could use castor oil as well, very vata pacifying. Or you could use another seasonally appropriate oil. In the summertime, the summer heat, we might use coconut oil. Traditionally, there might be other oils such as Kshira Bala oil or Brahmi oil that might be used. And Bala oil or ashwagandha oil, these might be traditionally used. And we might also apply it to other areas of our body. For example, Brahmi oil might be used at the top of the head, the temples as well. And I might advise some of the people I work with to also do a full body massage. Right. So I will say traditionally, Abhyanga is done in the morning, right? So the morning massage can be wonderful to do before you bathe. However, if you're having trouble with sleep, you could also just follow doing your Abhyanga, your oil massage at night, warm oil, and then taking a warm bath and really, just getting under your covers and feeling that kind of calm you receive from the oil massage, as it's so grounding for the body and so vata pacifying. Now, it would be advised, if you can, to walk under the moonlight. And of course, I would say this, it should be seasonally appropriate, right? So in the summer moonlight that we get, it can be really lovely to receive the cooling and calm effects of the moonlight. And so it can feel very soothing to receive that. And it also helps with our circadian rhythm as well. So that would be something very, very simple and gentle to do. You might want to also drink something warming and comforting, right? So this traditionally might look like a warm milk. So you could look at organic A2 milk, gently boiled, adding a pinch of nutmeg. Nutmeg is considered to be a gentle sedative, and it's very soothing to include at night as well. It could look like ashwagandha, adding ashwagandha, and it could look like adding Brahmi powder. So it really depends on you. Of course, there's other herbs that might be used, such as Shankapushpi or Jatamansi as well. And these are personalized, right? So personalized for you, your time in life, whether you're pregnant, nursing, depending on your specific situation, the season you're in. But having something comforting and warm can be very grounding and support your sleep. Restorative yoga asana can be really lovely to add in as well. And so what I often will advise to people is to do legs up the wall. So doing legs up the wall helps to really pacify vata dosha and support calming our nervous system as well. So this is something that you could consider doing for 5 to 10 minutes. And maybe it's like after you oil your feet, you're doing something like this. You might also want to do just very gentle and supported forward fold as well. So something like, where your legs are wide and you're folding forward, or your legs are in Baddha Konasana, like a butterfly pose, and you're folding forward. So just being very gentle and holding that position for a few breaths. You might also consider doing some breath work. So just deep belly breathing can be really beautiful. And maybe you're focusing on the exhalation. And the exhalation helps to support your body to drop more into the parasympathetic nervous system rather than an activated nervous system such as sympathetic, right? So we're helping to just calm, bring peace. Breath work is beautiful for that. I love Brahmari pranayama, so doing a really gentle humming sound, right, with the mudra, like a hand gesture, or without. So that's really beautiful as well, and so nice to do with your kids as well. Right, so something I even advise for new parents, right? It's holding baby and you're doing Brahmari pranayama, you're doing the humming breath. And you might also include sleeping affirmations. So as you're laying down, you might say something like, I am welcoming rest. I am welcoming deep sleep. My mind is calm. My body is calm. I'm safe and supported. Something calming, right? And maybe it's a prayer, And of course, you could journal, you could read from a pleasant book, but, avoiding, electronics. So I love this quote by Octavia Rahim, who's a yoga nidra teacher. Right? So she says, rest results in more clarity, energy, life force, wisdom, inner power, peace, freedom, delight, self-love, joy, creativity, connection to others, capacity to expand, and more. Refusing rest denies access to the results of rest. And who benefits from that? Right? Sleep is essential. It's also free, right? So, being able to just, care for one of these most profound, superpowers, as I like to say, that we can help to cultivate within us, can really, as Ayurveda says, support our vitality and our health and prevent disease.